Hello, everybody. I'm CJ Miller. I'm outside on my balcony in my downtown apartment in Shreveport, Louisiana. And across from downtown, the Red River is beautiful Bossier City, Louisiana. And yeah, if you're coming through on your holiday and you want some stuff to do, get with me in the comments. We'll figure some stuff out that's going to be appealing to your senses. Okay, the reason for this video, I'm going to be talking a little bit about my impression of Creature Commandos. And this is just off of the first episode. Um, those of us who are DC comic fans, and I am, uh, have been since I was a child. We're excited about this, but we know that this is the first endeavor of the newly rebranded DC universe, kind of like the DC extended universe that was happening. Um, it was never actually the DC extended universe officially. That's something that fans called it, and it got picked up in the press and it kind of stuck, but it was never like stamped or whatever. But when I say DC, EU was consider that the Snyderverse, what people call the Snyderverse. Um, but there's going to be some connective tissue. Um, s- s- you know, um, yeah. My very first impression, very first frame, we get an image of an animated Superman in his legacy look. I mean, the shield, not the S, but the that looks like a shield with an S in it. Not the uh, trapezoidal kind of thing, but yeah, it looked like that, and so it kind of takes us back to the comic book look and the early uh, look of Superman in the animated cartoons. So it's cool, but strangely updated, and his hair in this thing kind of did look like what I might expect um, David Cornsweet's hair to look like or whatever. It kind of, so it's kind of like, hey, it just kind of set the tone for what we're going to expect, and a little bit of fan service because that little bit of me was like, "Ooh, Superman." So yeah, like just there he is. That's what it is, and um, what a great way to open the curtain on this first part of the DCU, which is going to be called Gods and Monsters. And it's going to be a story they're going to have to tell, I imagine, within 10 years, because I think within about 8 to 10 years or something, a lot of these characters, a lot of the legacy characters, are going to be in the public domain. And it's going to be very difficult to uh, really tell a credible story when everybody's taking their spin on it, and all of a sudden it's going to be like, ooh, or whatever. And I really, I don't like, I don't mind if there's a dark side to some of the fairy tales that I grew up with, but I'm not too keen on somebody like taking, uh, the images and heroes of my childhood and making them into monsters. I'm like the Winnie the Pooh universe and all that. I don't, whatever. And I really couldn't get into that anyway. I tried, but it was like, I tried to watch that movie. Ugh, it was like, ugh, I don't have the patience for this. Um, whatever. I did see they're doing a dark version of Popeye, or that may have been, I don't know. Out of that may have been short film. It may have been a. Sometimes they make a trailer to a film, but it's not actually a film yet, or what. I don't know. But Popeye, the Slayer Man, or something. I don't know. I think there's going to be a couple of those. When characters go into the public domain, sometimes people get a hold of them and they don't have respect for the legacy of the character. And that's the one thing about James Gunn. I feel like he's going to have respect for the legacy of these characters. Um, And in the Snyderverse, I feel like maybe they played around a little bit um, with, or maybe they condensed um, in Man of Steel a little bit of that. We got right to the point early on where Lois Lane discovers the identity of this man who is Clark Kent, and he's not even working at the Daily Planet. So they took a lot of liberties. Or I didn't read that particular section of comics. Maybe that came uh, later when I was taking a break from comics or whatever. But I don't know. Because I really love going to the origin stories, the ones that I knew, and even in the '80s when I was reading the comics, they were taking liberties, and they weren't always that origin story from the very early age of comics. But Superman's origin has always been what it is, and I feel like moving into this DCU and the first Superman movie is not necessarily going to be an origin story, and it's going to be taking place in a world that's already introduced to heroes, so we don't need to go through all that again. Which makes sense because some of this, as evidenced in Suicides, no, Creature Commandos, in this first episode, we get that Superman title, that shot, and then we get the DC title, and then we get right into it. And I'm gonna give a little bit, some small spoilers, but I won't give the whole thing away. But I like the characters. They bring back Weasel from Suicide Squad 2, and oh, what's say uh, the Frank Grillo is playing. If I said that right, it's Grillo or Grillo. I don't know, but I don't know how you would pronounce it. If it's a Spanish pronunciation, the two L's would be they have a Y, like a Grillo, kind of thing. But maybe he's not Spanish. I don't know. But anyway, so maybe then it's Frank Grillo. I don't know, but he's playing uh, Rick Flag Senior. Okay, and this animated character has some black and some white, kind of salt and peppery, largely grayish hair. And I guess maybe he's going to style up because in the live version, he's going to have dark hair. And I think it's because during filming, he was working on a couple of different projects. And it was going to be, they decided to just let him have the dark hair versus uh, looking gray, being too gray or something like that. But I get, and that just shows how they really don't want to make the same CGI mistake that probably is mostly responsible for tanking the Snyderverse anyway. And that's when um, the original director had to step away from Justice League to handle issues with this family after a family tragedy. We know that story, and I'm not going to rehash it here. But then Josh Whedon stepped in and he did a condensed version for the theatrical release, and it was very similar story, but tonally a lot different. About half as short, and yeah. So um, found out that maybe they should have let the DC EU, the Snyderverse, the original version, let that be. But anyway, that's cool. Whatever. Uh, we had two versions. When we're in a hurry, we can watch the Josh Whedon version. It's all right, but the mistake, um, the Superman's mouth, CGI mouth, because he had a mustache, and they did a CGI uh, to kind of do that. And if they tried to do that with this uh, Rick Flag senior character, taking the dark hair and CGI his gray hair or something like that, maybe technology is better now and they'd be able to do a better job. That I don't really know that they tried very much on this on that original theatrical Justice League. It doesn't really look like they. It doesn't seem like they tried very hard. to really do a good CGI job. It just seemed like they slapped something up there to cover up a mustache or whatever. I don't know, stupid. But um, tell you what they should have done. They should have filmed everything uh, for the theatrical release of Justice League for the Josh Whedon, and then they should have done filmed those scenes, and then they could have had uh, I don't know. Never mind. That's most of it's going to be canonical, except for not necessarily. There is a thing, you can argue that what happened in the Flash, Flash went back and just reset everything, and then source that was the next to the last movie, Aquaman. Was actually the last movie, but not too much with that Aquaman kind of tied in to what was going on. uh, Even though it was part of DCEU, not really too much really happened there that would stick it and tag it in. So, but I think they've done some recasting anyway. So, just for various reasons, the DC universe is part of a multiverse. So, in sense, all of it's canon, and in a sense, uh, there's several different canons happening at the same time, and that's okay too. And you know that's acknowledged that there are some movies like such as the Batman movies and the Joker movies. They're happening uh, elseworld. They're not part of the DCU, so they're elseworld, other worlds. Other whatever, other canons. Whatever. So whatever. Anyway, we do have creature commandos and get that Superman that lets us know, hey, this is really going to respect the legacy of DC Comics. Love that. Then we get right into an opening shot of a news report being viewed at Belle Reve by Amanda Waller, being voiced by Viola Davis, doing a wonderful, beautiful job. What I love about Viola uh, Davis is when Amanda Waller gets to like lose her shit. She used to like snap and just explode just for a second, then she reels it back in. Well, we didn't get that point here, but she is a woman who's a mover and a shaker. Apparently, they've been told the Suicide Squad no more of the Task Force X. Either the last Suicide movie, I think they kind of like they kind of got her kind of like you know she again I don't know if the losing her agents or some they said that she can't do any more of these covert operations with people, with humans. Well, she has rounded up a lot of the villains who are uh, not human or metahuman, so to speak, but anything but. There's a corpse who is the bride. There is you know and by that we mean the bride of Frankenstein. And there's also a Frankenstein monster. So there again, see, these are characters. Uh, Mary Shelley created these characters in her novel, and they're now uh, public domain, so people can do whatever they want with these characters. Well, that's what's going to happen to Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman very soon. Within the next 10 to 15 years or whatever. So we got to start as filmmakers start getting us uh, acquainted with other characters all the way back in the 80s. The very first, I'll tell you, if you really want to get familiar and see how far back some of these characters go, and they go back even further than this, but the 1985-86 Crisis on Infinite Earths. I had the book. I don't have the tie-ins. I have all of the comic books in one volume, but I don't have the tie-in. So I'm going to start working on collecting that next. I have to go through the book and make a list. But comic books always would do that back then. You had to have the next one too, and it wasn't just Crisis on Infinite Earths, but you'd be reading, and they would say such and such and such, and the characters would make a reference because, they were episodic in some sense, and they would say, "Oh, well, you can read about this in this particular episode, in this title, in this magazine over here," so that you would want to read and get introduced to various comic book characters other than the ones that you bought. You'd have to go back and you'd like, I want to read the other ones and such, so that's great. uh, Comic books have great respect for the fans and continuity, and the problem is that as fans grow up and fans start writing comic books and working for the comic book characters, companies like DC or whatever, then they want to bridge those continuities, and that's why we end up uh, making such an important thing of it, and sometimes we forget, hey, it's fun and it's fiction and it's for entertainment and it's for enjoyment. But oh my God, the fandom is so serious. It's like, oh, that's not what happened. Like it's kind of like Kathy Bates in Misery, talking about the serials. He didn't get out of the cock-a-doodle car. But anyway, Viola Davis voicing Amanda Waller, and Frank Grillo voicing Rick Flag, and Sean Gunn voicing Weasel, doing a great thing as Weasel. And I think he's also playing uh, the robot or one of the other characters. He's got a couple of characters that he's doing, but it's great. Not too much happens. They go to this location. They get selected, and they go to a location because they have a mission, and I guess they're in a small country uh, that it's a made up accent. It's not entirely different from what happened with Suicide Squad 2. This is a smaller country. The motivation is that they've got oil that they're not too particularly interested in, the country itself. And so the United States can exploit that. And yeah. So, anyway, I've had a call coming in. So I'm going to wrap this up, and I'm going to say um, the animation is well drawn. There's a couple of points. There's a couple of things where I would maybe make the lines a little smoother and less pointed or sharp. But I've always been like that with DC Comics. DC comic um, animation has always been kind of squared off and less rounded. The actual images of the characters and stuff like that, to be more rugged and look roggy. And I've always wished that they would kind of tone back on that. But the coloring of this is almost a throwback to classic DC animation. If you're a fan of that, you're going to love it. I'm excited to see where this is going. The first episode, 22 minutes long. And yeah, so I'm going to give this a uh, S for streaming. I would definitely pay for the streaming service. It's on Max. And love and light. Peace. Good night.